Shifting our focus now to West Africa, where Mali's junta claims to have eliminated multiple high-ranking terrorists in a large-scale operation. The Malian army launched a synchronized drone strike that killed a senior commander and members of a newly formed rebel coalition operating in the volatile north of the country. The army said that those killed were high-ranking terrorist operatives. Reports indicate that as many as 8 Tuareg rebel leaders have been killed in the strikes. A statement from the Tuareg rebel spokesperson confirmed the attack and said that the strikes martyred some of the Azawad leaders. Now, Azawad is a term used by the separatists for northern Mali. Now, the drone strike took place in the town of Tinzaouatine in the north of the country, located near the border with Algeria. This town has been under control of rebel coalition known as the Permanent Strategic Framework for the Defense of the People of Azawad. Now, Tinzaouatine is the same town where a fierce battle broke out in July of this year that killed dozens of Malian soldiers and Russian Wagner mercenaries and prompted the junta to launch drone strikes. Now, Fahad Al-Mahmoud, taking to social media platform Facebook, Mali's communications ministry, said that the strikes killed several CSP cadres, including a key commander who was responsible for coordinating between the different separatist factions in northern Mali and represented them in discussions with the authorities on the peace agreement. Now, the attacks by Mali's junta came just a day after the armed groups in the north announced that they were merging into a single political and military entity, now called the Azawad Liberation Front. They say their mission is total liberation of the Azawad territory. The Mali junta has described the rebels as terrorists. To contextualize, Mali has been plunged into a crisis since the outbreak of independence and jihadist insurgencies in the north. Separatist groups from northern Mali, largely dominated by ethnic Tuaregs who live in the Sahara Desert, launched a rebellion against the Malian government's marginalization in 2012. The Tuareg rebels are demanding an independent homeland called Azawad. Some of the Tuareg rebel groups also want to implement Sharia law in Mali. Now, the rebellion that was launched by the Tuaregs in 2012 was later subsumed into an insurgency against the government by groups linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State. The separatists had signed a peace agreement with Mali's government in 2015. However, the peace agreement collapsed and the fighting renewed since early 2024. Now, the ongoing crisis in the north with the Tuaregs led the Malian armed forces to topple the civilian government in a double coup in 2020 and 2021, claiming its inefficiency in handling the crisis in the country. After coming to power, the junta kicked out the French and the UN troops from the West African country that had been involved in fighting the Islamist insurgents for a decade and replaced them with Russian mercenaries. With Russia's assistance, Mali's army recaptured the northern town of Kidal, a stronghold of Tuareg-dominated separatist groups in 2023. But in July of this year, at least 50 Russian Wagner mercenaries and about 10 Malian soldiers were killed in a deadly ambush in the same region. The junta in turn has launched several drone strikes in and around the region that have killed several civilians, including children, doctors and residents, and forced them to flee to neighboring Algeria. Now, this has led to increasing pressure on the Malian junta, which has promised to deal with the crisis at home after turning their back against the West. There has been extensive criticism and repeated calls to return to democratic rule in Mali. However, the junta has been delaying the decision. But the continuing crisis in northern Mali and the failure of the junta to deal with it has only raised several questions. So the Malian junta fit enough to deal with the crisis that it promised to end? Will the junta listen to the demands of the Tuaregs and renegotiate a peace agreement? This is something that all of us will be watching out for in the coming days.